Welcome to Halacha in a Year, where we can get to learn all the most relevant halacha through the prism of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You are listening to Rabbi Ya'akov Trump. This year is kindly sponsored by the Moshe Group and CA in zechus of Rivka Biela, bas נחמה Shifra, and in honor of Rabbi Trump. The topic we're going to be covering today is the 19th chapter of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Siman Yotes, which is the insertion into the Amidah for special days. We're going to cover 4 topics today, 4 concepts. The first is Mashiv Haruach Umorid Geshem. The second is V'sein Tal Umatar Livracha. The third is Ya'alev Yavoy. And the fourth is Aneno. Let's understand each of these in their own context and the rules that are associated with them. Let's start at the top. Mashiv Haruach Umorid Geshem. The background to this is the following. When it becomes the season of rain in the land of Israel, we add a phrase into the second bracha of the Shemona Esrei called Mashiv Haruach Umorid Geshem. Hashem brings up the wind and brings down the rain. And this is said from Shmini Atzeres until Pesach. So that is till the first day of Pesach. So that's half the year that this is said. And it is not a request for rain. And you can see this by the placement in the Amidah. It is not in the area of the Shemona Esrei called the Bakasha, the supplication. It is in the praise section. So we are praising Hashem as it relates to rain. We're going to ask for rain later on, in a little bit after that, a few weeks afterwards. But this is just the praise in the season that it relates to. And obviously it's meaningful that the praise begins before we actually ask for it. That's how relationships work. When you have a relationship, it's not just a vending machine. You don't just put coins in and hope to get what you want out. It's a relationship which requires investment, and that's before need. Let's start with a few questions that relate to Mashiv Haruach. We're going to deal with 13 questions that relate to this. So question number 1 is, when is the first time we say Mashiv Haruach Umorid Geshem in the annual cycle? It is on the Musaf or Shmini Atzeres. Question 2, is it in the silent Shemona Esrei or in the repetition of the Amidah? So the way it works is, the Gabbai will make an announcement, will knock on the bima and make an announcement of Mashiv Haruach before the silent Shemona Esrei. Then everybody will start saying it together in the silent Amidah, and that'll be the first time that it is said. If the Gabbai does not realize or forgets to make that announcement, then people will not say it during the silent Shemona Esrei. They will wait for the Chazaras Hashatz, for the repetition of the Shemona Esrei, in which there's a special prayer for rain. At such time, that will act as the announcement from then onwards, starting for Mincha that day. Question number 3. What if I'm not well or just not been in shul or in an area where I don't have a minyan? When would I start saying the Mashiv Haruach? So this goes based on where the minyan is in the big town. So if, let's say, I go to a particular shul and that shul davens and I know they're going to reach this the Musaf, the silent Shemona Esrei of Musaf of Shmini Atzeres at 10:45 a.m. At 10:45 a.m., then onwards, I'm allowed to say Mashiv Haruach. Before then, not. So one goes after what the shul would be doing. The shul that I'm usually at, where the minyan I'm usually at is, that would count for this. What exactly does it? When does it stop being said? So it stops being said at the silent Amidah, the silent Musaf Amidah on the first day of Pesach. What if I am not in a minyan on the first day of Pesach? A similar thing. So let's say I go to a particular shul, and that shul would get to Musaf on the first day of Pesach at 10:45. If I daven before 10:45, I would say it in the Musaf. If I daven after 10:45, I would not say in the Musaf, because I go after what the convention of the shul is, the main shul in town. Now, why is there no announcement before the silent Shemona Esrei on the first day of Pesach not to say it, like there is an announcement on Shmini Atzeres to say it in the silent Shemona Esrei, the silent Musaf on Shmini Atzeres? And the reason is because according to the Ashkenazic tradition, that during the summer months we'd say nothing instead of a Mashiv Haruach, and during the winter months we say Mashiv Haruach, then we don't want to make an announcement to the negative. We don't want to say to Hashem that we don't want bracha. We're not going to ask for bracha anymore. That's not appropriate. It's more done by the fact that there's a special tefila called Tfilas Tal, or the prayer for dew on the first day of Pesach, and that will notify people, but it's not trying to say, it's not negating and saying something which is important. Whereas, if a person is in Israel, where they say Morida Tal during the summer months, or in the Nusach Sfarad or Adot Mizrach, where they say Morida Tal, then the Gabbai would announce before the Musaf Morida Tal, because you're now announcing something positive. We're going to pray for dew, and of course that's in the absence of praying for rain, but it's not saying not praying for something. So that announcement, therefore, that's why in Ashkenaz, in the Ashkenazic communities in the diaspora, will only stop saying Mashiv Haruach after the silent Shmona Esrei of Pesach, or on the first day of Pesach. Now, what if I forgot to say the Mashivarach? This is not if you forgot, if you said it. We don't talk about that case of doubt, but I know I didn't say Mashivarach in the winter months, from Shmini Atzeres till Pesach. So case one would be before the end of the bracha. So then you just say at the not to interrupt the phrase, but at the end of the phrase you would say it, and you're good. In case two, let's say I have just finished the bracha and I have not yet started the third bracha. In that case, I may say Mashivarach and continue with the third bracha right there between the two brachas. And the third case is if I already started the third bracha, even if I just say Atah Kadosh, even the word Atah, then I must restart the Amidah. Why not just restart the second bracha? Why do you have to restart the whole Amidah? This is the second bracha of the Shmona Esrei that's found in. The reason is because the first three brachas in the Shmona Esrei are considered one unit. And when you mess up that unit, the entire unit falls, and therefore the entire Shmona Esrei needs to be started once again. Okay, now, what if I forgot it, the Maariv or Shachris or Musaf of the first day of Pesach, which is the day I'm stopping to say it anyway? In that case, one does not need to repeat it because that is the day we stop saying it. Let's flip it around. What happens if I say Morid Atal during the summer, and I by mistake say Morid Atal in the winter instead of saying Mashivarach Morid Geshem? So I asked for dew during the winter months instead of praise Hashem as relates to the dew, as opposed to praising Hashem as it relates to rain. In that case, if I'm already in the middle of the bracha, I just go back and fix it. But if I already finished the bracha, I do not need to go back, because asking for dew is similar to asking for rain. It's not seen as an egregious mistake, as completely omitting it. Now, question 11, what if about the other way around? What if I was saying Mashivarach during the summer? Right? So I'm asking for rain during the summer where it's not good to have rain in Israel. So the halacha is the same, just flipped. If I'm before the end of the bracha, I return to the beginning of the bracha and say the bracha without it. Once I've finished the bracha, and even if I have not started the third bracha of the Shmona Esrei yet, that's now invalidated my Shmona Esrei. I have to return to the beginning. So it's a very serious omission, or a mistaken inclusion. Question number 12. What if I just said Mashivarach, but I didn't say Morid Geshem? Does that make a problem? I just said Mashivarach. Hashem bring the winds. That is not a problem. One does not need to go back even lechatchila to change that, because it's all right to ask for winds. It's the rain that's the problem. 13th and last question of this section. What if by mistake I add a Mashivarach to the Amidah of Maariv, Shachris, or Musaf, or Shmini Atzeres, which is the day when I'm going to start saying it, but it's before the time I'm supposed to start saying it? There's no need to go back in that situation, because that's the day that the community is starting. And we now move to our second concept. Our second concept is the Sein Tal Umatar. This is where we ask Hashem, not praise Hashem, but we ask Hashem to bring rain and dew. This is said during the winter months. When do we start saying this? So it depends on locality. If a person is in Israel, the Mishnah in Tainus teaches us that this is said 2 weeks after Shmini Atzeres, because that is the amount of time it would take all those who are Olei Regalim, the pilgrims who came to the Beis Hamikdash, the Jews who came from all around, even from the very far north, to get back to that place. And then we start asking for rain when everybody's no longer on the roads. And that it turns out to be the day of the 7th of Mar Cheshvan, which is 2 weeks exactly after the end of Sukkot. In the diaspora, however, where the needs of rain is patterned after the Babylonian winter, and that's where we start. We start 60 days after Tekufa, which means the vernal equinox, which going on the Julian calendar is the meridian between December 4th and December 5th, which is a secular date because it's going after the equinox. The equinox is a solar-based time, which is when the night and day is equal. And this is based on the needs of rain in Babylon, which are adapted to the needs of the diaspora, even in diasporas where perhaps rain is needed in different settings or different seasons. A few questions that we're going to look at when it comes to this section. We have 5 basic questions. Question number 1 is, what happens if I forgot? Which means I know I did not say the Saint Alamatar after December 4th passed. So let's look at the cases. If, let's say, I am still in the middle of the bracha, so I just say it there. The Saint Alamatar bracha, please Hashem give us the rain and dew for blessing. What happens if I finish the bracha? So in this case, you don't go back to the beginning of the bracha. You go on to Shema Kolenu, which is a catch-all, which is a more general tiller for listening to our needs. At that point, say it in the word, the Shema Kolenu, before the words Ki Ato Shomea Tfilas Yisrael, so that you, Hashem, because you listen to our prayers, you can make that insertion there. In many Siddurim, there are asterisks that for extra prayers, which are said there anyway, which is why it's very special. What happens if I finished Shomea Tefila? So as long as one didn't finish the bracha, you can still put it in, even if you're after Ki Ato Shomea. If you finished Shema Koleinu, then you have to go back to the bracha of Birkas Hashanim, where we bless the years, Baruch Aleinu, and continue from there to the end of the Shemona Esrei correctly with its inclusion. And finally, case number 5 is if I finish the Shemona Esrei by saying Yehi Ul-Ratzon, the last, asking Hashem to accept our prayers. At that point in time, I have finished the Amidah, and I need to go back because the Amidah has been deficient not having done it this way. What happens if it was the other way around? Let's say I ask for rain, the Saint Alamatar, before December 4th or in the summer. Is that right? The answer is no. So if I'm in the bracha, I have to restart the bracha to say it without it. If I already finished the bracha, I have to go back to the bracha and say it correctly from there without it. And if I've reached the end of the Shemona Esrei, that means I need to repeat the Amidah. Okay. Question number 3, very common question. What if I just don't know what I did? So whether for my Shiva or the Saint Talamatar. This is the most common question. It's not that I know I left it out. I just don't know what I was doing. I was on screensaver. I really had no idea what I was doing. And I'm at the end of Shemona Esrei. Did I do it? Did I not say it? But the stakes are high because if I didn't say it, then I need to repeat. So what should I do? This is, in this particular situation, it depends when you remember, when it is that you don't know. If it's within 30 days days of the change, so it's within the 30 days of starting to say Shiva, it's within 30 days of saying the Saint Talamatar, or stopping for both of them, or 30 days after Pesach, then one has to assume that within 30 days one is still going to go by the habit of one's lips, which is that in default you'll do what you used to do, which is wrong, and therefore you repeat the Shemona Esrei. If it's after 30 days, the default has changed. The assumption is the new habit has been forged, and therefore I assume I did what was correct, and no, don't need to go back in that situation. General rule in life, be aware of what we do. It's a very important idea. We live much more happily that way, but this is in a situation where one is absent in terms of what one is doing. A very unusual question. What if I davened the Chol Amidah, the weekday Amidah, on the first night of Pesach, right? So now, and I remembered in the middle of the bracha of Birkas Hashanim, which should not be done on that night, but I'm so caught up in it that I'm saying the Birkas Hashanim, and the halacha is that you finish up the bracha you're in if you realize you're in a weekday Amidah on a Shabbos or a Yom Tov. Now this is very unusual because usually you catch yourself at Slach Lanu Avinu, because once your hand reaches your chest and you're like, well, why is my hand patting my chest? Then you realize, oh, wait a second, I'm davening a weekday Amidah. At that point in time, you carefully dust off your lapel and pretend that you weren't doing Slach Lanu, and you finish off the bracha and go start from the Shabbos or Yom Tov part. But let's assume you completely missed that cue and you're in the Birkas Hashanim, and now I need to say Birkas Hashanim, but it's the first day of Pesach, so do I say the Saint Talamatar or not? So in this case, you would not say the Saint Talamatar, because although, technically speaking, it waits until the next day Musaf, but nobody's saying it right now. So that means the community has essentially, for all practical purposes, stopped saying it as well. Similarly, let's say the 4th of December is on a Shabbos night, and you're moving into a weekday Shemona Esrei on the Friday night by mistake. You remember the middle of the bracha. At that time, you would not start saying the Saint Talamatar, even though it's December 4th, because the community has not started for all intents and purposes until Motzei Shabbos, when they can daven a Tiras Chol. The fifth and last question in this section is a very common question. Somebody goes to Israel and is there on the 7th of Mar Cheshvan. So in Israel, everybody starts praying the Saint Talamatar. They stay in Israel. What should they do in Israel? Then they come back before December 4th. What should they do when they come back? So if you're in Israel and you are past the 7th of Mar Cheshvan, you should daven the Saint Talamatar in the Shemona Esrei, because you're davening for Israel and you're in Israel. However, when you come back and it's before the December, you don't want to stop praying for rain once you started, but it's inappropriate to pray for it in the diaspora at such a time. So the halacha would be is you say the Saint Talamatar in Shema Kolenu, meaning you say the Saint Baracha, please place blessing in the Birkas Hashanim. But when in the Shema Kolenu, you'll continue the Saint Talamatar until December 4th comes, and you can put it back practically into the Birkas Hashanim there afterwards. Our third concept is Yale V'Yavo. Yale V'Yavo is what's called Mazkirin Me'ein HaMa'ora. When you have a special day, you mention it in this bracha, which is found in the Seder Avodah, where we talk about the korbanos that were brought in the Beis Hamikdash, and we mention Rosh Chodesh, all the different Yom Tovim that it is as well. So a few basic questions, and we're going to look at 6 questions here. Number 1 is there a problem if I miss out Yale V'Yavo on a special day? The answer is yes. It is a problem. You'd have to repeat the Shemona Esrei in all the cases except the night of Mariv on Rosh Chodesh. Why is the night of Mariv on Rosh Chodesh different? The answer is because they did not Mekadesh the Chodesh. They would not make the new month holy on the night. So therefore, the Mariv is less consequential if I forgot it. So much so that even if I finished the bracha of Ritzei, I would not go back to put it in, even if before I finish the Shemona Esrei. Now, on other days where it is consequential, so everything except for the night of Rosh Chodesh, what do? I have left it out. So if it's before Yil Ratzon, if it's before the end of the Shemona Esrei, then I would go back, start at Ritzei, and say it correctly with Yalev Yoyo. If I finish the Shemona Esrei, you would have to repeat the Shemona Esrei in all other situations. So it's a high stakes. What the next question number 4. What if I left out Ya'alev Yavo at Shachris on Rosh Chodesh or Chol HaMoed, and I remembered it after I did Musaf? So really, technically speaking, I already mentioned the day especially because I did Musaf. Doesn't matter, your Shachris didn't count, you still need to go back, even if you remembered afterwards. What if it's no longer the time to daven Shachris and I forgot it, so I remembered in the afternoon that I didn't do Ya'alev Yavo in the morning? Well, then your tefillah did not count this morning, and you would need to do what's called a tashlumim, which means a make-up tefillah. We'll talk about that, Be'ezrat Hashem, when we get to Siman Chaf Aleph, number 21. Now, let's go to the 6th last question in this section. What if the Baal Tefillah messed up and left out the consequential mention in his private Amidah? So he forgets Ya'alev Yavo when he's davening his private Shemona Esrei. What should he do? Because now everybody's waiting for him. So in this case, if he is in the first 3 and he misses Ya'alev Yavo, he should go back. If it's Ya'alev Yavo and to go back to the beginning of Shemona Esrei will mean another 3 minutes, and everybody else is kind of looking around and tapping their watches, in that case, he does not go back. He would say the Chazara Sashatz, the repetition of the Shemona Esrei, do it correctly, and that would count as his personal tefillah in this circumstance. Finally, 4th and last concept is Anenu. What is Anenu? On a fast day, we add a special prayer called Anenu. Hashem, answer us. It's a very, very beautiful prayer. It's about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're in terrible tzara, we're in terrible distress. Hashem, please answer our prayers on this difficult day. It is said at different times. For the Baal Tefillah, for the person who's leading the Tefillah, it's said at Shachris between the bracha of Goel, Revon and Refainu. Of course, it has the same language of Anenu, of answer us, which is in Goel, which makes sense. And then it would have its own chasima, its own closing of the bracha. However, for the individuals, it's not said at Shachris, it is only said at Mincha in Shema Kolenu. Why is it not said in the morning by the individuals? Because not all individuals will make it through the fast necessarily. So you can only really say this if you're fasting, which is why it's said by Mincha. By that time, the assumption is that you have been fasting up till then, and therefore it is all right. If you're not fasting, you're not allowed to say it as well. You don't have the privilege of saying it unless you're actually talking about it in this respect as well. What happens if I forgot Anenu? So if it's before the end of the Shemona Esrei, you don't go back to Shema Kolenu, you just say it in Elokan Tzar as a special request, supplication at the end of the Shemona Esrei. However, if I finish the Shemona Esrei, I would lose out and I would not say it. It is a zechus, it is a merit to be able to say this, and one has lost out that merit, but one would not go back to repeat the Shemona Esrei in this particular case. We have looked at in this section 4 special insertions. We looked at Mashiva Ruach. We looked at the Saint Alamatar. We looked at Ya'alev Yavo, and we looked at Anenu. This concludes the special insertion section in the Shemona Esrei. Have a wonderful and meaningful day.